The fluorescent lights of the emergency room hummed a dull, monotonous tune, a sound that seemed to vibrate right through the throbbing in my skull. The coppery scent of my own blood dried along my temple, mixed with the stark, antiseptic smell of the hospital. My hands trembled as I held my phone, the screen spiderwebbed with cracks from the impact. Every breath was a sharp, stabbing reminder in my ribs, but that pain was nothing compared to the cold, expanding void in my chest as I dialed the number of the one person that was supposed to be my sanctuary, my husband, Mark. The line rang once, twice, 3 times, then it went to voicemail. A moment later, a text bubble appeared, followed by a message that froze the very blood in my veins. In a meeting with a major client. Can't interrupt this. Just get an Uber. I'll Venmo you. I stared at the words until they blurred. A meeting? I could hear the faint, melodious background noise of a piano bar in the silence between his words. I knew that place. It was his and hers favorite spot. The pain in my ribs flared, a white-hot agony, but it was a welcome distraction from the absolute shattering happening inside me. My thumb, smudged with dirt and blood, hovered over the keyboard. I typed a single, devastatingly simple word. Okay. That was the moment our marriage truly ended. Not in the screech of tires and the crushing of metal, but in that quiet, sterile room with that one acquiescent word. The woman who had been carried from the wreckage by kind strangers was now abandoned by the man who had vowed to carry her through life. We had been beautiful once. He was the man who brought me coffee in bed every morning for a year. The man who learned to braid my daughter's hair because I was all thumbs. I had built my life around him, trusting the foundation was solid. But betrayal doesn't arrive with a bang. It seeps in, silent and insidious. It was the new password on his phone, the business trips that always coincided with her social media posts from the same city, the way he'd flinch when I touched him unexpectedly, a reflex of guilt, not surprise. Her name was Chloe. She wasn't just a client, she was his soulmate, or so he'd whisper to a friend on a call he didn't know I overheard. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry. I became a ghost in my own home, observing, collecting, and hardening. When the accident happened, a reckless driver T-boning my car at an intersection, the final veil lifted. Lying in that hospital bed, I had a crystalline moment of clarity. I could let this betrayal destroy what was left of me, or I could use it as fuel to burn his carefully constructed world to the ground. And I chose the fire. My first call was to a lawyer, a pit bull of a woman named Sarah, whose eyes glinted with a predatory light when I laid out my story. I handed her a digital treasure trove, screenshots of deleted texts recovered from the cloud, credit card statements for hotel rooms, and even a recording of him admitting to transferring $15,000 of our joint savings into a secret account for a surprise for me, a down payment on an apartment for them. Sarah smiled. Leave it to me. My next move was more nuanced. I called the non-emergency police line. I explained with a voice trembling, not from fear, but from perfectly feigned distress, that my husband, my emergency contact, wasn't answering. I was concussed, unable to drive, and had no one else. I was terrified. Could an officer possibly check his office or his usual lunch spot? I gave them the name of the piano bar. He works so hard, I added, my voice breaking. I then quietly informed the hospital administration that due to my head injury, I was feeling extremely vulnerable and requested that any communication with my husband be handled through a social worker. This created an official record of his abandonment. The scene must have been exquisite. Imagine him sitting in that dimly lit booth with Chloe, their hands intertwined. Then the approach of a uniformed police officer. "Mr. Evans, your wife has been in a serious accident. She's at County General, alone, and quite distressed. You're listed as her sole emergency contact. We need you to come with us to the hospital immediately." The color draining from his face. Chloe's hand snatching back from his. The eyes of every other patron in the restaurant burning with judgment. The facade of the respectable businessman crumbling into dust. I wasn't there to see it. By the time he arrived at the hospital, flustered and full of excuses, I was already gone. But I left a package for him at the front desk. It contained the keys to our house and the first page of the divorce papers. The aftermath was a masterpiece of legal and social destruction. Sarah moved with breathtaking speed. She froze every account. She subpoenaed the restaurant's security footage. She exposed the apartment he'd bought for Chloe, securing it for me in the settlement. The social fallout was even sweeter. The story spread like wildfire. His colleague looked at him with disdain. His friends dropped him. I never raised my voice. I never sent an angry text. I simply presented the truth with the cold, hard precision of a surgeon wielding a scalpel. I took everything: the house, the savings, his reputation, and his pride. And that right there was the turning point. The moment the silence I wielded became louder than any scream. But this was only the first chapter of my new life. The story of how I rebuilt myself from the ground up, stronger, smarter, and unbreakable, is a story for another day. If you want to hear how I turned this ending into my powerful new beginning, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one, and it's amazing to see how far and wide this message of strength can travel. He tried to call me once, his voice a broken thing on my voicemail. "How could you be so cruel?" he whined. I deleted the message without a response. He never understood. The cruelty wasn't in my revenge. The cruelty was in the text message that told his injured wife to take an Uber home from the ER. The accident left me with a small scar on my forehead, but he was left with a permanent mark on his soul. I didn't just leave him. I vanished, leaving behind only the echoing silence of my absence. The best revenge wasn't hatred. It was a life lived so well that his betrayal became the best thing that ever happened to me.